was that same yearning for freedom that nearly 250 years ago gave birth to a special place called America. It was a small cluster of colonies caught between a great ocean and a vast wilderness. It was home to an incredible people with a revolutionary idea that they could rule themselves, that they could chart their own destiny, and then together they could light up the entire world.
Well, hello, I'm Janet Morana, the Executive Director of Priests for Life. Welcome to Just Ask Janet. Well, today's program, I'm going to have a very, very dear friend of mine, Father Pavones, in our ministry here at Priests for Life. She's part of our team here, and I've known her for quite a number of years, and we're going to go back in time with you and let you really understand how the Black community has been activated to bring an end to abortion because they have been targeted. So joining me today on our program is Alveda King, Evangelist Alveda King. She's a pastoral associate of Priests for Life, and she heads up Civil Rights for the Unborn. Alveda, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Janet. Hi, everybody. It's so good to see everyone. I'm glad to join you. From time to time, we get to do this.
Exactly.
And really have really good conversations.
Exactly.
Okay?
Well, of course, we go all the way back. Actually, the first time you and Father Pavone met each other was
1999.
1999, and it was at a New York State Right to Life convention.
Right.
And that's where I think it just, the spark lit, and you both realized, hey, we can collaborate. And then I remember not too long after that, at this time, Father Frank and I were doing a program called Defending Life on EWTN, Birmingham, Alabama, and we brought you down to be on the program. And for you, Alveda, that was very emotional because you had not been back to Birmingham in a very, very long time. So tell us why you hadn't been back, and then let's talk about that little visit in Birmingham.
That was at the turn of the century. We were talking about the millennium and about to go into a new millennium and all of that. And the reason I had not been back to Birmingham, our home, the home of A.D. King and Naomi King, the church parsonage, had been bombed in 1963.
Wow.
And I was a teen or preteen at that time. All the children were in the home. And it was a very traumatic time. We lived in Birmingham for 3 years, and then we moved to Louisville, Kentucky. That was the height of the civil rights movement of the 20th century. I became a youth organizer and all of that. My uncle, Martin Luther King Jr., was assassinated in 1968, and my dad, A.D. King, was killed in 1969. So Birmingham was part of that history for me, and I had no desire to revisit it.
Right.
However, I did agree to come and do Defending Life with you, and I had to come back to Birmingham. And interestingly, Janet, I think you'll remember, we get to Birmingham, and I have selective memory. My mind blocks out tragedies sometimes. So I couldn't remember. I knew the house was in Inslee, but I didn't know where. So we drove into a gas station. And you remember what happened?
Oh, yeah, because here we were. You're saying to me, well, Janet, I want to go back to my home. I want to go see it now. I'm here anyway. We pull into this gas station. Of course, I don't know Birmingham. And everyone has to understand, this was before GPSs and all these fancy cell phones.
Were big blocky things.
Yeah. So we didn't have all the devices like you had today. So pulled into a gas station because I had to get gas. We were driving around looking, and Father Pavone was in the back seat. You and I in the front. And all of a sudden, this lady comes to the window and says, "Can I help you, ladies?" And I said, well, I have Alveda King here, niece of Martin Luther King. And her daddy, A.D. King, was a pastor here. And we're looking for the church because right by the church was their home. And she goes, well, I know that church. Follow me. What would be the odds of that? And I remember when we walked in that block and you had a vision right outside that home, didn't you?
I sure did. And I began to see the home again, and to know we did find the actual house after that. And across the street was where, as a child, I played in the field of the steel mill. Mm-hmm. And then years later, they closed and all of that. And so I began to reconnect with Birmingham, with my family, with the memories. And I could see it clearly as a connection and a bridge to life in this century for the babies.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And then, of course, several years later, you became an associate, pastoral associate of Priest for Life. And we started back then, and that was in about 2005, I think it was, right?
Yeah, 2005.
Yeah, we started African American outreach because you had said, well, Janet, we got to get the Black community aware of what abortion is doing to them, right? So we started that way. And I remember you said, I'll go any place, they'll have me come and speak.
Right.
And whenever I go to speak at a banquet or whatever, the next morning, whatever pastors want to sit around the breakfast table with me and whatever diner we can do it, I need
if it's
to
one
talk
person,
to them.
it doesn't matter how many.
Whatever.
See, I had been pro-life since 1983.
Right.
And I was
And
giving
that's
my
when
own
you
testimony.
were born again.
I became a born-again Christian in
Right.
83.
And of
that's
course,
first
the
time-
Baptists in your family were all shuddering.
Because like, where is she going with this? And I would ask, I'd say, a woman has the right to choose what she does with her body. The baby's not her body. How can a dream survive if we murder the children? Everybody's, what's she talking about? What is this? What is this? And I began to talk about my own abortions in 83, but not broadly. Nobody really knew about it, and nobody wanted to hear about it.
That's right.
And so in 1999, when I met Father Frank, same thing, 2000 or so, at the turn of a century, we go to Birmingham. And I said, well, I'll talk about it. I'll talk more publicly about it.
Right.
And I began to do that really before 2005, because I became silent no more.
Right.
I had healing at Rachel's Vineyard. I went on my first March for Life. All these different things were happening.
Right.
In 2005, we made it official. I
Mhm.
became a pastoral associate
Right.
with Priests for Life and dealing with African American outreach at first.
Well, I remember too, the first March for Life, you and I and Father Pavone, we were marching together, and we
Mhm.
had the women with Silent No More with us. And I remember Father Frank saying to you, well, Alveda, does this remind you of the civil rights movement?
Right.
Back in the
and
day?
You can actually see in the picture because I turned my head and I said, Father
Right.
Frank, this is the civil rights
This
movement.
is the civil rights movement.
Yeah.
I remember that too.
Yeah.
That was amazing.
Mhm.
And of course, you started giving your testimony with Silent No More about your own abortions, and it wasn't your granddaddy? Didn't he stop you?
My granddaddy, honestly, in 1950, Mom was pregnant with me.
Oh, that's right, because your mom became Silent No More.
This was it.
Years
did.
later.
And
Right.
she, on your show, really, on Defending Life, she told you the testimony. But in 1950, Mom, Planned Parenthood, I don't know if they were still Birth Control League, changing the Planned Parenthood, whatever, but they were passing out flyers to the Negro schools, the Black schools, Negro schools. And if you've got a problem with your reproduction, come and see us. They didn't advertise abortion, it was illegal.
Right.
But they had the DNCs. So if you have an undisclosed problem and you don't even know what it is, we have exploratory surgery for that. We can do a DNC.
It's all
this.
code words.
But she
for
knew
abortion.
she was pregnant.
Right.
And so she wanted to go. She wanted to finish college. She and Dad were in college. And she didn't want to birth a baby. She was pregnant with me. They were engaged to be married. They told my grandfather, Martin Luther King Sr., Granddaddy looked at my mother. Her nickname was Nina. Nina, they're lying to you. That's not a lump of flesh. That's my granddaughter. I saw her in a dream 3 years ago. She has bright skin and bright red hair, and she's going to bless many people.
And there you are, Alveda.
This is me. So Mom and Daddy got married. I was born several months later after they got married, and I was the first of 5 children. So Granddaddy saved me from abortion.
Right.
And then I had secret abortions prior to 83
Mhm.
and a live birth. And then when I became born again, after I had seen an ultrasound, Janet, of the next live baby, and I saw that, ultrasounds used to be sonograms, and they were real, not even as clear. They were gray.
They were gray and
all
fuzzy.
that. But I saw that little heart, and I said, my
Beating.
God, they're lying. This is a person.
Right.
And so that's how I began to say all of that in 83. And then after I met you and Father Frank and you and all of that, and became really strong in the message, stronger. And I officially joined with Priests for Life in 2005.
Yeah. And then I remember, I think it might have been, I don't know if it was your Aunt Coretta's funeral or.
It was Coretta.
Coretta's funeral.
Yeah.
Okay, so Father and I flew to Atlanta, and funny. Well, first we have to tell the funny story. Then I'll get to the serious story. But I remember the funny story was, it was pouring rain, and we people were lined up because she was laying
in
state in
yeah.
the old Ebenezer Baptist
Right,
Church. Across
right.
the street is the big sanctuary where the
Right,
funeral
right,
was going to be.
right.
But now she's laying in state in old Ebenezer, and the line of people with the big umbrellas going all around the corner. We pull up in a car with you, me and Father Frank. We get out. The police open the doors, and as we head, and now it looks like Father Frank and I are cutting the line, and Alveda goes, "No, let them through. They're family.
This is my family.
This is my family.
They're looking like
and they're all
family,
looking at me.
Okay, yeah. And remember, when we were getting ready to actually go to the funeral service, and we gathered as a family, who did they ask to pray?
That was the other thing.
Yeah.
We were at Bernice's home.
House full of preachers.
All preachers, all
Mhm,
preachers,
mhm.
all Baptist preachers.
Mhm.
And your cousin Bernice
Yeah,
King turns to Father Pavone and says, "Well, Father Frank, would you please pray before we leave?"
Actually did. It
Yeah.
was amazing. And I just
Well,
chuckled.
I think
Yeah.
back about that, and I said, you know what? She was very wise, because if she picked preacher cousin this one, he'd say, "Well, how come you didn't pick
Which
this
one?
one?
Which one?
Which one?"
And she
But
didn't.
she picked Father Frank. Oh, that was neutral territory.
And a few years later, he actually preached. I'm a member of Believers Bible Christian Church in Atlanta. Father Frank came and preached about Lazarus come forth
Right.
out of the grave. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, how in the world is he going to tie this to abortion? And even as Lazarus comes forth, let the babies come forth.
Right.
And the whole congregation, amen, amen.
Amen.
And he
Yeah.
preached at our church. Boy, did he
But
preach.
then that
Yeah.
day, I mean, it was a long day.
Yeah,
Typical funeral, 3 hours later.
Yeah.
And we eventually
Yeah.
made our way to the Hyatt Regency downtown Atlanta, where they had a reception.
Mhm.
And it's time to go to the airport. We're standing outside.
Standing by the car.
Yeah. And your mom turns to me and says, "Well, Janet, before you go, I have to tell you something."
Mm-hmm. She did.
She says, "I have a testimony too."
And I'm sitting there like, what?
And yeah, you're just going, huh?
Yeah.
And she blurted out the story you
The
just
whole
told.
story of my grandfather. That's the first time I heard bits and pieces through the years. Yeah. But the whole story she told you.
And she told the whole story,
Mhm.
how she wanted to abort you.
Mhm.
And I remember you turning and looking at her and saying, "So now this makes
I
sense,
say it
Mom."
makes sense.
Because
Because she
she-
say, don't be a pest. You always ruin everything. Through the years, she would just say things. And I'm like, how
How am I
what
ruining
am I
things?
doing?
Yeah.
But
Your existence ruined things in
it
her
changed her whole
mind
life. It changed her whole
because
life.
she couldn't go to finish the schooling she was doing, and her
Mhm.
whole life changed and all that.
Yeah.
But wasn't that amazing that from that point forward,
Mhm.
your relationship with your mom totally changed?
It totally
Because
changed.
it's like finally it was out on the table, the honesty,
would.
right?
And
Of
sometimes she'll look at me now and say, I'm so sorry. I didn't know it was you. I say, Mom, we straight. We cool. We good. I'm okay. It's every once in a while she'll think about it. And she talks to reporters and everybody.
and she tells her
And
story.
tells the story.
And then, of course, we invited her to go to Birmingham to be
Mhm.
on our Defending Life program, where
Yeah.
she told this
She
testimony.
sure did. And it's a beautiful.
And I remember
Truth.
since then, she has now locally, when she speaks, she says, "Well, I have a testimony," and she gives her story.
You
right?
gave, you and Father Frank, Priest for Life, gave her that award that year
Yes.
at the March for Life when we go to the prayer service. And
Mhm.
she received that and spoke there as well.
So she's but when you say, like, just to help other people understand that not knowing and being honest with you and your mom, it was like the white elephant in the room.
It was.
But once your mom finally came clean, so to speak, and was honest with you, your relationship then finally grew
It did.
to the positive,
did.
right?
And interestingly, Janet, even with my own children, when I came back from Rachel's Vineyard and I had my nice little memorial box and everything, I even have a picture now with an illustrated picture of my granddaddy and me, and I'm holding that healing box.
Yeah.
And I told the children about Philip, Jessica, and Raphael. Raphael was a miscarried baby. Philip and Jessica, the aborted babies. And you aborted babies? Did you want to abort us? My own children asking me.
Right.
And then later, because my granddaughters, I have a couple who are 10 now, and even the little one, and one of my grandsons, and I showed them. And then one of my granddaughters, did you want to abort my mommy? So we're actually able, I said, I'm glad I didn't, because you wouldn't be here. And we go and we discuss and we talk. So I guess I'm taking this time speaking to even the viewers. And Janet, there's a gentle and sweet way to talk to children about abortion.
There is, right?
Mhm.
I mean, because, you're not showing pictures, you're not showing anything of this is what an abortion looks like. But what you're saying to children is some mommies are afraid to be mommies.
Yeah,
Some mommies are not ready to be mommies.
that's it.
And unfortunately, they buy into the lie that having an abortion, getting rid of that baby, is a
Quick answer.
quick
and
answer.
it isn't.
And it isn't. We know it
So,
creates all these other problems.
Yeah.
So I would say, like, for people watching and listening, that, honesty really is the best policy in a nice way of kids, because kids get it, right?
Yeah, they do.
Live baby good, dead baby bad. So in simple terms, they really do understand that.
And they're
So-
forgiving,
right.
and they talk, and they really make sure that right now they're safe. Nothing's going to happen. I'm not going to do anything to you. But they begin to get it. And I think that's helpful.
Yeah, sure it is.
Yeah.
So when you started with Priest for Life, of course, we started that African American outreach. That was the first initiation there. And then from that kind of grew where you started to meet Black pro-life leaders.
Yes.
And then you kind of formed, what's the coalition?
We formed the National Black Pro-Life Coalition together. And there were many, many Black leaders who came forth. I thought I was alone. I thought I was the only one. And then Priests for Life organized the pro-life freedom rides.
That's right.
And many of those leaders joined and came and rode across the South with us, proclaiming the message of life.
Right. And we went from Birmingham up to
Yeah,
Atlanta.
yeah.
It was in the summer.
Yeah.
I think it was one of the hottest days
It
I
really
remember.
was.
Oh my goodness. We were in front of the abortion mills. We boarded a big freedom bus. And explain to everybody, because that was mimicking the freedom rides from the civil rights movement.
From the
right?
civil rights movement, a group of young people boarded a bus and began to ride across around the South to test the laws that it was now be legal for Blacks to cross the state lines and have liberation and freedom. The Jim Crow laws were coming down.
Right.
And they were actually attacked. One of the buses was firebombed. Some were harmed.
Wow.
It was a very dangerous time. They were riding based on skin color. And of course, we know the scripture, Acts 17:26. Of one blood, God made all people. Now, we're not colorblind. We can see each other. I can see your beautiful colors of your garment. I can see your eyes, your hair. We can see each other, but we celebrate ethnicity. We don't fight over ethnicity. So skin color, of course, has been dealt with somewhat effectively, not totally, not even in this century. But we still ignore the babies in the womb.
Right.
So we could still call racism, it's racist to do something to somebody because their skin is a different color of yours. And it is because we're one blood and one human race. However, we're one blood and one human race from the womb to the tomb. Right. So that's what civil rights for the unborn does. It doesn't only deal with African American babies. It deals with all babies. And to discriminate against a child in the womb, that is still racial discrimination.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
So from those freedom rides, then, it's kind of like those Black pro-life leaders got to know each other.
Yeah.
And then they formed the
National Black Pro-Life Coalition. It's
which
still
to this day is still going forward, and they collaborate on projects and conference calls, and so much is happening. And I've watched so many of those leaders now even blossom
to the fullness of their own organizations.
Exactly.
You know, you've got Walter Hoyt, Kathleen Davis, Dean Nelson, Dr. Johnny Hunter was our mentor in the very beginning.
Yeah.
And Clenard Childress, Reverend Childress, so many of them, and all of us. One thing we do coalesce around is Juneteenth.
Right.
And so in 2005, when I came, I said one of our initiatives has to always be Juneteenth. And we learned here and talked about what Juneteenth is. And that's when in Texas, 2 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, almost 3 years, it was closer to 3 years, the slaves in Texas found out that they had been liberated. Mm-hmm. And so that was a celebration. So my premise in 2005, all the way up till now, was if it took them 2 years to find out in Texas in 1865 that they were free, how long is it going to take people, not just Black people, to know that the babies in the womb have to be free? So we've always celebrated Juneteenth as civil rights for the unborn.
Always.
And now President Trump, believe it or not, was the one that celebrated Juneteenth out of the White House.
And he was
in
one,
2020.
He started the initiative to make it a national holiday.
And Congress just wouldn't give him the bill.
Right.
And so the bill was passed now under President 46, and he signed it. But President Trump brought
It was
Juneteenth
his
to
initiative.
America out of the White House.
Right.
He did.
Exactly.
He really did.
And I remember too, it was since you came on board here that we all started being very aware of Juneteenth, and every year we would promote it big time.
Yes,
it was
you
a
would.
big focus of our ministry to point to Juneteenth.
Every year it has been.
And it will
and
continue. It will
We're saying
continue.
the same thing.
So now let's talk a little bit about civil rights for the unborn. I want to invite people, first of all, to go to the website, civilrightsfortheunborn.org. We have a whole new website there,
Mhm.
all the activities and things for people to join. You always say, join the movement.
Join the movement, and you can join the movement on Facebook as well, Civil Rights for the Unborn Official.
Right.
And you can go there, and it'll redirect you back to the website, I believe.
But the Facebook page too is important, Civil Rights for the Unborn Official, because, you know, while what's on your website is great and we keep loading it up there, but the day-to-day, like little live videos
And like it, and we're gonna-
memes
yeah,
and
we'll
things
have
like
it,
that,
yeah.
and tools you can use to spread the message
Absolutely.
about how the Black community, even to this day, is so targeted. I mean, like
We are.
in New York City, where I'm originally from, Alveda, I mean, there are more Black babies aborted than are born
They're
alive.
born. It's upside down.
It's upside
really.
down. It's
And
crazy.
the numbers are pretty close in some other states as well, and that's on purpose. Of course, we know Planned Parenthood, Margaret Sanger came out of New York.
Right.
And so that's why that's that home base. So you know that they're going to be worse there than anywhere else in the country.
Right.
However, it's still a problem across the country that people are being told, especially Black women, not only Black women, but especially Black women. If you want to be a credit to your race, you can't have too many children. They also give Black men, they urge Black men to get vasectomies, same thing.
Right.
So we have to know that that is really genuinely going on, and we have to inform, educate, and activate the communities first of America and then around the world to the scourge of abortion. And so that's why it's no longer African American outreach.
Right. It's
It
civil
is
rights for the
expanded to
unborn.
civil rights for the unborn. That's all the babies.
That's right.
Yeah.
And of course, you know, with civil rights for the unborn and all this, just to go back to Planned Parenthood for a minute. First of all, they definitely target the Black community because we know the number of abortion mills, Planned Parenthoods,
Yeah.
are populated more in Black communities.
That's right.
Which is it's so obvious. There's maps of this you can see. You can Google to see. Oh my goodness! Look, there was one situation in downtown Los Angeles where within a 2-mile radius, there's close to 8 abortion clinics. Within a 2-mile radius, and they're targeting a Black and Hispanic community. So they are being targeted, and it's just. But we got to get the word out. And the other thing I think, Alveda, you can mention is the new code language, reproductive health.
Reproductive health.
And they like this term. This is what the other side is using now. And if you ask the average person right on the street, well, don't you think we should be funding?
Everybody wants health, good
Yeah,
health.
and so good
especially.
reproductive health for women sounds like this is something good. We
Yeah,
want women to
yeah.
have good reproductive health so they can have children. But what they don't understand is reproductive health is a code word for abortion.
It sure is.
Code words, because that's really these bills that they're trying to sneak this in on budgets and all this stuff, whether it's at home or abroad, it's all to fund abortion, isn't it?
Well, I've got 2 questions. I'm going to be the audience, guys. I'm going to be you. I'm going to imagine you have this question. Janet, why did you say abortion mill and not abortion clinic? Why did you just say abortion mills?
Well, because at an abortion clinic / mill, it's a mill because they're only interested in turning out how many women they can turn out in a given day. On a day, the average abortion mill that does abortions on the day that they're there to do surgical abortions, they'll do anywhere from 12 to 15 procedures in one morning, like
Yeah,
throughout
that's
a few hours in the morning.
That's
Okay,
true.
that's a mill, isn't that?
That's a mill. It's not a clinic. They're not healing anybody.
No, and when those women show up for that appointment, there's no medical history taken. They just want to know cash, credit, or Medicaid.
Yeah.
That's all they want to
Yeah.
know. That's 3 questions: cash, credit, Medicaid. Give me the money, and there's no medical history taken. Into the next room, they get undressed. They give them a little pill to calm them down, and next thing you know, when did they meet that doctor? When they're on the table, ready for the procedure.
And
to
they
start.
rush them out because it's numbers. And women have been harmed
Oh yeah.
at the abortion mill get rushed to the hospital. Some of them have died at the hospital.
And you
from
can
that.
list some of the black
Their
women.
names, numbers, and names of black women,
who
women,
have
period.
died. Right.
And they do. I have one more. You said something else in the sentence that might have gone past the audience because we don't always think about it. You said, and on the international scene.
Right.
Now, we know that what happens in America
Gets exported overseas.
all overseas. Tell us a little bit about what happens internationally when we don't all lollygag and say, oh, abortion's fine. It's going to make you feel better. All that's not true. But the world is watching. So what happens?
Well, what happens here in America, first of all, now that we have a pro-abortion president and vice president and policymakers in the White House, overseas now we are funding abortion.
That's right.
Because under President Trump, he turned the faucet off.
That's good.
Okay, so that we were not going to send money overseas for abortion. But now with this current administration, it's a pro-abortion administration, the floodgates are opening, and they're looking, Alveda, for every bill, every opportunity that they can attach abortion to, funding. And it's terrible. So what it really comes down to is elections have consequences.
That's right.
For the unborn.
Yeah.
Because if there's a pro-life president in the White House, if we have a pro-life House majority, pro-life Senate majority, things happen. Babies get protection, women get protection.
Yeah.
But when it's the other way around, like it is currently in our country, the floodgates open to abortion.
That's why, folks, pay attention to our websites. That's important, and we update them frequently. Facebook, Civil Rights for the Unborn Official. And what's yours, Janet? What's your handle on Facebook?
It's at Janet Morana.
At Janet Morana. So if you follow us, we're going to give you up-to-date information constantly.
Right.
And then follow Janet on Just Ask Janet. Come over to Pro-Life Praise and you'll hear music and things like that
From
along
Alveda.
with guests.
Exactly.
So we're going to keep bringing this information to you. See, nothing is hopeless. But if we don't inform, educate, and activate the people, then that's how all these things keep happening. So we have to do our part, and we need you. We need you. Like us on Facebook. Visit us. Come and see us. Ask us, write us, ask questions, and donate.
Absolutely. Well, Alveda, as always, you and I we just chat away and the time flies, doesn't it?
It does.
Yeah. And of course, I love having you on the program. Thank you so much. I love you.
Right. I love you.
We've been at this for a long time together, haven't we?
It's time for us to take another trip together.
That's right.
We've got to do it.
We do. Well, brothers and sisters, thank you for joining us on the program today. And as you know, it was a privilege to have my dear sister in the Lord, Alveda King, with us. And remember now, go to civilrightsfortheunborn.org, our website, get involved. And of course, on Facebook, Civil Rights for the Unborn Official. And remember, brothers and sisters, there are some abortions only you can stop, and some lives only you can save. Join us again next time on Just Ask Janet.
I think we have Richard Lee, we have Jim Garlow, and we have Father Frank Pavone. Someplace they were in the audience, so I appreciate you. I appreciate you being.
Follow him, Father Frank Pavone, Fr. Frank Pavone, on Twitter. He is the National Director of Priests for Life. Please go to priestsforlife.org.